Hi everyone, welcome back to Everyday Crochet. I'm Marissa and I've had a bit of a break unexpectedly, but I'm back. You might notice if you watch some of my other videos, I'm in a different room now. This is my actual office that I actually crochet in, and so I thought I'd start filming in here. It's just cozier and it's actually where all my stuff is. Before I was filming in my husband's office, and every time we filmed, I would have to bring all my stuff there and it was like a whole to-do. So I decided I just set up a camera in here. When I say he actually did it. So I could film in here where all my stuff is, where I actually do my work. So this video today, I thought I would talk a little bit about what is in my mind the different grammar or kind of dialects of crochet patterns. And as I do that, I'm going to actually talk about and show some of the some of the projects I am actually working on. And that way you can kind of see what those different areas look like. So when we're talking about crochet patterns, and when you're new to crochet and looking to pick patterns for the first time, you're generally going to run across patterns in three different forms. The first one is going to be working in rows. So you're going to do a foundation chain, you're going to stitch all the way across, probably chain, turn, work back across, and back and forth until your project's completed, or until that portion of the project is completed. So that's kind of the first one. It's the most common. The second thing we're going to talk about is corner to corner. So this is where you kind of work in blocks and work to your corners, and then you can either do a triangle or then decrease and make it a square. And then the third type of pattern type we're going to talk about is working in the round. So as I talk about these three types and what makes them different and how you can construct things out of them, I'm also going to talk a little bit about, if you're new to crochet, where you might want to start and what considerations you need to make when you're thinking about picking a project that is in one of these categories. So let's dive in and talk about some of the things I'm actually working on. And I've got my little off-camera kitty Elvis is here to assist me today. So if you see cat fur over here, that's where he is. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, as I said, is working in rows. I think if you're new to crochet, picking projects that are worked in rows is probably your best bet as a place to start. The reason for that is it's the simplest. It's going to give you an ability to think about working your stitches consistently, working on your gauge consistently in a way where you're not having to think about and learn some more fiddly techniques that come with those other two types of patterns. And the reason I think about working in rows, working corner to corner, and then working in rounds as dialects of crochet is the stitches are the same. You're going to use the same stitches, but the way you're taking those pieces and putting them together works differently depending on what type of pattern you're using. And so that's why I like to think about it as it's the same language, it's just different dialects of the same language. We're taking these building blocks and putting them together slightly differently. So my projects that I'm working in rows, I'm currently working on two. The first one is this beautiful top. It is a summer t-shirt made of alternating treble crochet stitches and slip stitches. I believe this pattern is by Hand Jan Crochet. Actually, I think most of the patterns I'm talking about here, I'm just on a Hand Jan Crochet binge right now. I really do love her patterns. I find them really well thought out and written. And I know that when I buy one of her patterns, I know exactly what I'm getting. She sets them all up the same. She provides a lot of sizing options and yarn options. And I just feel like especially if you want to get into garment making, her patterns are a really fabulous place to start. So this is her treble summer tee. I'm like 80% done with it. Most garments are either worked top down or bottom up. And this one is actually worked side to side, and then with a hole for your neck in the middle. And then after I block it later today, because I just finished the main pattern of it this morning, I'm going to block it this afternoon, and then we're going to just stitch up the sides, add a little bit of finishing, and this bad boy is going to be done. So that pattern was just worked in rows. For this project, I used the Fiber Company's Luma yarn in the color Saint-Tropez. I have loved working with this yarn. It's a cotton silk wool viscose blend. It's very light and airy and just luxurious, but it was also lovely to stitch with. It didn't tangle, it didn't split when I was trying to stitch with it. I just absolutely have loved working with this fiber, and I'm excited because I will have a little bit left over when I'm done with this project. So I think I'm going to make like a headband or like a neck scarf or something with it, a couple little accessories, just because I have somewhat left over. I'm obsessed with this yarn. I'm obsessed with this color. So this is the first project of Rose that I'm working on that we're talking about today. And it is, of all the projects that we're talking about today, the one that is closest to being finished. It'll probably be finished tomorrow. So that is project number one. The second one is this tweedy sweater pattern. Again, this is another Hanjan special. So this one is worked in rows with half double crochet from the bottom up. So I did a bottom row of ribbing and then just have worked half double crochet stitches all the way up. And this is the Brava Tweed worsted weight from We Crochet in the color Kenai, I think it's pronounced Kenai. So this is a really light acrylic worsted weight yarn. It's been really easy to work with so far. So this is my other pattern that I'm working in rows. So as you can see, this just allows me, when I'm working, to create a panel that I can then stitch together to other panels of the project to complete the finished whole. Working in rows is also really great for things like washcloths, dishcloths, blankets. A lot of the first projects I made were blankets, and that allowed me to work on a variety of stitches, creating a beautiful whole without having to worry too much about gauge, because if the gauge is slightly off, it's a blanket. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that allowed me to kind of focus on some other elements of my craft as I was learning crochet. Now that I've moved into making garments, I'm a lot more focused on gauge, but working blankets in rows was a really, really great place to start. So those are the projects I'm working on right now that are worked in rows. So I've got my sweater and I've got my t-shirt that's almost done, and I'm so excited to be able to wear it because it's 1,000 degrees here in North Carolina. So having a nice airy t-shirt, I'm very excited. All right. So the next project I'm going to talk about is corner to corner. As I mentioned earlier in this video, corner to corner is worked in blocks, and you start with one block, and then on that you do 2 blocks and 3 blocks and so on and so forth. And that creates your rows. So it's similar to working in rows, but the approach is different because you're not working 100 stitches across and then 100 stitches back. You're increasing every row. The first time I did corner to corner, it kind of broke my brain a little bit because I was so used to working in rows that it's just such a different approach. It really took me a little bit to kind of get my brain around it. And every time I work corner to corner, once you're into the pattern, it's fine. But the first couple rows, especially, it's very fiddly the first couple rows when you're kind of building it up, which is why after working rows, it's like my second recommendation of where to start, just because the beginning is very fiddly. It can be very confusing if you're not familiar where to put your stitches. So that's why corner to corner is my second recommendation, and I apologize for the bag opening sound. So the corner to corner project I'm working on right now, this is my travel project. So I never work on this when I'm home. This is what I take with me when I travel. I do have another YouTube channel with my husband, Grant. It is Grant and Marisa, and we record all of our travel adventures there. So whenever we go anywhere, I always have one project that I bring with me. So when I'm on planes or we're just having some chill time at the hotel or whatever, I have something to work on. And I really like corner to corner because I'm just kind of doing the same thing over and over. I really don't need to have a pattern with me. I can just kind of mindlessly stitch while I'm away from home, and it can generally fit in a Ziploc bag and just go with me. And if you're wondering why there's just a bundle of yarn at the bottom of this bag, this is the second skein of this yarn, or second hank. It was a hank of yarn that I bought for this project, and My dog Ellie got into it and she just kind of undid the hank, and I need to pull it out of this bag and rewind it, and I'm just really scared to do so. So that's what is going on at the bottom of that bag. But this is the rest of the first hank of yarn. The yarn I'm working on this project is it's the Terra yarn from the brand Symphony. And this is the color Mystic Lagoon. This is so bright for me. I almost never work in like this kind of colorway, but it just really spoke to me on that day. I really wanted something bright and something different. And I think it's just like going to be a nice pop of color. It's going to be like a scarf or a small shawl when it's done. And usually when I travel, I wear a lot of black t-shirts. So this is going to be something I can add to my wardrobe as a pop of color. So as you can see for the corner to corner, hold it up. We have this first block here, this first block, and then beneath that we have 2 blocks and then 3 blocks. So you can kind of see how it's built out, and then you start, this is where I started, and then you just kind of work these blocks across. And gosh, these colors are really so beautiful. So this is my travel project. So if you ever happen to stumble across me in an airport, this is in the near future, this is probably what I'll be working on. And I'm really completely dreading rewinding this. That's gonna suck. If you have hanks of yarn and you have dogs, don't keep the hanks of yarn within reach of the dogs. Lesson learned. So that is my corner to corner. So again, similar to working in rows, it's just constructed slightly differently. And again, once you're into it, it's fine. But the first couple of rows, when it's so tiny, are very, very fiddly. And so for a new, if you're newer to crochet, it might get a little frustrating in the beginning as you put those first couple of blocks together. And then once you get going, it's a breeze. But the first few rows might be challenging. And that is a really great way, corner to corner, it's a really great way for, again, scarves, shawls, blankets as well. Anything like that, corner to corner is going to be great for. So that's my travel project. That is the only corner to corner project I'm working on right now. So the last category I want to talk about today is working in the round. In the round opens up so many possibilities of things you can create. Amagrini, granny squares, the bottoms of bags or coasters, or, oh my gosh, clothes. So many things are worked in the round. But I'm putting it third. I'm putting it, if you're new to crochet, until you get a couple projects under your belt and you're feeling really confident with chains and stitches, I would shy away from in the round for a little bit for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are 2 ways to start an in the round project. You're either going to make a chain of stitches and connect that chain end to end and then stitch into those chains, or you're going to do a few chains, close it, and stitch into the center of those chains, so making a very small circle that way. The third way is using a technique called the magic circle, which is a way to, again, create a circle that you stitch into that you can then cinch close and create a really tight center. This is a really common technique for, again, granny squares and especially amagrini. And all 3 of these, one, require creating a chain that's consistent that you can stitch either into the center of or into those chains, not twisting it when you join it, which can be challenging. A lot of people find the magic circle really tricky the first few times they do it. It requires a lot of dexterity because you're transferring it. It's something small. You're transferring it from one hand to the other. And again, to start a project, it can be really challenging and really frustrating. Beyond that, working in the round kind of presents some unique challenges that don't exist when you're working in rows or corner to corner. And so working in the round, you're going to either have to work in continuous rounds where you're not chaining, but you still want to have a sense of where the beginning of the round is, or you're going to be slip stitching your rounds closed and it's going to create a seam, and you want to make sure that seam isn't doing funky stuff. Again, you really need to know where your stitches are if you're working continuous rounds or if you're working closed rounds. There are a lot of different techniques, and some of them I still struggle with. I'm working on a few in the round projects right now, and every time I get to the end of the round, I'm like, wait, am I doing this correctly. So my in the round projects that I'm working on right now, the first is, this is a, oh my gosh, hold on. Let me put I finished working on it last night and I didn't put a stitch marker in my stitch, and I don't want to accidentally pull it out. That would be tragic. And that's my other thing. If you're working on projects, and you're going to put it down and walk away, put a stitch marker in it so you don't accidentally pull out everything you've just done. Okay, so this is my first in the round project. It is a raglan sweater. The yarn here is Winter Glow from Hobby, and this is they don't have color names, they're just numbers, and I don't know which number this is off the top of my head. I didn't check, but it's this beautiful variegated green with browns and golds and hints of blue in it, and it's just absolutely fabulous. It's gonna be a sweater for my husband. The Winter Glow is an acrylic wool blend, and it has these really differing weight. It's technically a DK weight, I think, but the strand has varying thicknesses to it, which creates a beautiful texture to the project. And I think once I block it, it's going to bloom a little bit and really kind of fill in some of the spaces. But it's gorgeous. So this is started with a raglan yoke, which means I kind of created almost a rectangle of chains and then stitched into those chains to create the center. And now that I'm working on the main body of it, I'm just working in closed rounds all the way around. So you can see it's going to be a sweater. So it's worked top down. And this is my first time working a sweater in the round. So that's a little terrifying for me. I have one more project that I'm currently working on, but it's my project that's in timeout. It is an in the round project, and the working in the round is not its fault. That's not why it's in timeout. And I say it's in timeout just because I've sat down to work on this project multiple times lately and worked on it for a while and then realized I'd made some kind of mistake many rows back. And I'm unhappy with it, and I have to frog or pull out a bunch of it and then start again, not start the whole project over, but just do like 5 or 10 rows again. And after like the third time that happened, I was like, I need to step away from this project for a while. It was not working for me. I'm getting frustrated. I'm not having fun with it anymore. And it's really frustrating because I was about 2/3 done when this repeated series of errors started happening. So it's in timeout right now. And I think it's okay if you are someone that works on multiple projects. If you are getting to that point where you are just feel like you're beating your head into a wall, it's okay to just put the project away for a while. If it's not giving you joy, like don't force it. Just don't sit with something that's giving you frustration. So I didn't get it down off the shelf before I started filming. So this is my timeout project. It's a Hawthorne tee. Another hand-jan crochet. Love Hannah at Hand-Tran. Absolutely fabulous creator. I love this top. It's so stinking cute. It has these granny stitches at the top, and then it goes into herringbone double crochet at the bottom. And I love the texture. I love the look of it so much. I'm working on it in this gorgeous charcoal gray color. It's going to be a great summer top, except at first I was really unhappy with the gauge of how my herringbone double crochet stitches were looking. And then because the sweater I showed you previously, the raglan is worked in herringbone half double crochet. I accidentally did several rows of this in herringbone half double crochet instead of double crochet. And between gauge issues and doing wrong stitches, I love this project. It's going to be so pretty. It's honestly so close to being done, and I just can't look at it right now. I've torn it out and redone it too many times, and it just needs to sit for another few weeks before we can start talking again. And you'll notice I've got a couple projects in plastic bags and some projects that are not. Generally, if it's something I'm consistently working on, I don't put it in a bag. But if it's something that I need to put away or I'm not working on super consistently, I put it in a bag just to kind of keep it safe. I know a lot of people will store their stuff in totes just to protect against moths and stuff. It's fortunately, knock on wood, not an issue I've had, but that is a really common way to keep things together. So that is my kind of rundown of working in rows versus working corner to corner versus working in the round. And this is not to scare you off of working in the round if you're new to crochet. It's a super important technique to learn and be able to do. I would just approach it with caution, give yourself a lot of grace for making mistakes, and I would definitely recommend maybe starting with something in the rows, first getting some of that dexterity built, getting some of your confidence up before approaching something in the round like granny squares or amigurumi, just because it does involve a little bit more of that dexterity. I think this is really true for a lot of people. The first crochet project I ever tried to do was an amigurumi little dinosaur. And I immediately realized this act of making loops with yarn and a hook, that I love. This amigurumi thing, not at all for me. It was too tiny. It was too fiddly. It's increases and decreases, and it was just too much for me right out of the gate. So I was like, let me find something simple, and I started doing blankets instead. So after like 2 years of doing blankets, I'm finally like opening up my crochet world a little bit, but that was definitely not the place for me to start. And so that's kind of where my maybe stay away from working in the round right out of the gate comes from. So that is everything I think I wanted to talk about in this video. We covered rows and corner to corner, and in the round we talked about the projects I'm working on right now. There's so many of them. Once I finish my beautiful blue treble crochet top, I think the next thing I'm going to work is a lacy cardigan, like a lighter than this, because this is wool, lacy cardigan. So that's going to be my next project on deck, and I've never really made something like that before, so I'm really excited. So that is everything I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out my other videos, also go ahead and subscribe to this channel and follow me along on my journey. And I think next time, one of the reasons I had a break was I had a little misadventure involving yarn winders. So I think my next video, I'm going to talk about that misadventure. And we're going to talk about winding yarn. All right. I hope everyone has a lovely day, and I'll see you next time, friends.